Happy New Year and welcome to Remainders, the podcast dedicated to exploring the wonder and joy that is the movies, the old, the new, the remembered, and the forgotten. As we record this episode, it is January 4th, 2024, and that means our podcast is now 4 years old. Pretty excited about that. Thank you all for listening. My name is Darren Varell, and joining me is my co-host Patrick McIntyre, who is no doubt stocking up on new books to get him through the next few cold, dark, and unforgiving months in Chicago. It's great to be back with you, Pat. How have things been going for you?
Hey, bud. Good to see you finally. Things are going great. I'm doing good. I'm just realizing that I think you should be the official intro person for our podcast. I know we kind of go back and forth, but yours is always so much more insightful. I'm just like, hey, yeah, we like movies and whatnot, which is accurate. You just have a way of making it a little bit more eloquent, I'd say. So,
it always helps in the morning when I wake up with my coffee to just write some things down. So, I'm not as eloquent if I just have to do it off the cuff, but sometimes writing it down works.
No, I like that. Yeah. So we've actually been kind of shifting the recording to the morning recordings and sessions. And I feel like it's kind of more appropriate. I don't know. Like, I feel like we used to kind of do it later at night, maybe with a drink or two, but doing it in the morning, talking about movies first thing with the coffee, it seems to be going well. So, yeah,
I think that's the kind of the sweet spot. It's funny, after 4 years of doing the podcast, I think we're kind of figuring some things out still, which is, that's great. That's supposed to be what life's about, right? Just kind of figuring out how to do things. And yeah, the morning stuff, it's just like, I don't have anything else that's bogged me down, no other creative thoughts that have gone in my head. So I'm not as mentally exhausted, and I'm ready to go and raring to go and talk about the film that we're talking about. Speaking of, we've got a pretty good one today. Called, I want to go into a little synopsis, and then I got to hear your take on this film.
Please do. I'm very excited to hear because this one's a little bit out of left field for your traditional picks.
Exactly. Yeah, I definitely think this is going to be a fun discussion. But yeah, different for us, and it's starting off the year. Definitely in a weird way. But we're going to hear what you think. I want to give a little synopsis about the film here. And then, I would love to hear what people out there think, because I'm not sure that this film has been widely talked about. So we may be even one of the only podcasts that have brought it up. I'm not sure. I don't think it's that popular of a film, but here we go. I don't believe there's a God. Then again, maybe I am God. Either way, I'm still fucked. That's a quote from the great monster from this film. And this film is called No Such Thing. It's from 2001. It's a supernatural drama by Hal Hartley. It's starring Sarah Polley as Beatrice and RoboCop 3 himself, Robert John Burke, as a depressed, drunk, and foul-mouthed monster. The film begins on a remote island where the monster is recording a confession about killing a film crew that had come to his home to learn more about the myth of the monster. The recording travels back to New York, where we find our lead Beatrice, played by Sarah Polley, living and working as a sort of news station personal assistant secretary, getting coffee, running errands. Her boss says she's late, but she's really 20 minutes early, that kind of thing. It turns out her fiance, Jim, was one of the members of the film crew that was potentially killed by the monster. And so she convinces her cutthroat news hound boss, played by Helen Mirren, to go to the island and get details about what actually happened. On her way, though, Beatrice is in a plane crash and she has to undergo an intense surgery to survive. Here we meet her doctor, played by the great Dr. Zhivago actress, Julie Christie, who nurses Beatrice back to health. Now, Beatrice finally heals, and she's convinced to keep her plan to find the monster. She arrives in Iceland, where she quickly meets the townsfolk who get her drunk and leave her as a sacrifice on the monster's front door. When she wakes up, the monster, who hilariously replies with, "What the fuck are you looking at?" is determined to convince Beatrice to help him find the only doctor that can help him kill himself and thus save humanity from the monster wreaking havoc on humanity for years to come. Will this budding friendship survive the media circus when Beatrice Beatrice's boss gets a hold of the story? Will the monster ever kill again? And what is the point of this movie anyway? Patrick, I'm sure by now you've seen that the great Roger Ebert gave this film 1 star. So I'm eager to get your initial thoughts on this film and find out if you're still going to be my friend after suggesting no such thing as our film review today.
Oh, that was beautiful. I could see the good writing that follows you in the morning. First thing, I love it. Yeah, I was going to quiz you, see if you knew what Ebert gave this, and so Ebert did give this 1 star when it came out in 2001. I mean, but that's just one man's opinion. We love Ebert here, but it's always good to reflect. I mean, not every movie that we watch was unfortunately reviewed by Roger Ebert, but when they were, we always like to see what he thought. I'm still processing this movie. This movie is, like I said, pretty out of left field for you. I was excited to watch it because it just didn't seem like one that you traditionally pick, and it's a mixed bag for sure. Like, I don't know what this movie was trying to say, like you're saying, like what the message is. I mean, it's basically kind of like a Beauty and the Beast, and I kept on seeing Beowulf, loosely adapted from Beowulf, which maybe I need to revisit Beowulf. I didn't see that other than the fact that there was a monster that needed to be destroyed. This movie's all over the place. I watched half of it last night. I finished it watching the other half at 6:30 in the morning today, and I had fun watching it. I was very excited because of the cast, but I'm going to need your help teasing out the things that you liked about it, because I'm still befuddled by most of it right now.
Yeah, and so here's the thing. This film it's interesting. I suggested 2 films to Patrick to to watch. And one was Cane Toads, which was released recently on Criterion, which honestly, it's weird because that movie, Cane Toads, which is a documentary about these toads that have infested Australia, is a documentary that I watched in film class. And it's a movie that I was searching for forever. When Patrick and I, we've talked about this on this podcast before, worked at a movie store called Suncoast. And the early days of Suncoast, it really was like a pretty amazing store where you could find a lot of things that were out of print. We go into a movie database, and if it was on DVD, you could usually find it or pre-order it. And then it kind of became a corporate monster after Best Buy bought it. But in the early days, it was really good for stuff like that. And so Cane Toads, I remember always searching for. And another film that I had seen, not in film class or anything, but I had seen this film somewhere. And maybe it was a suggestion from somebody at Suncoast, because that was the greatest thing about the movie store, is that people would tell you about films that you should see. And this is around the time that we were working there. So 2001 would have been right. I remember when the terrorist attacks happened, I was actually going to work at Suncoast that day. And,
same here. I was scheduled that day.
Yeah. I think they ended up closing the mall, right?
Yeah, we definitely, I was getting out of school and I got the call that the mall was going to be closed from our manager. But I was scheduled to work that day. So.
Yeah, I was actually opening the store as the junior key holder.
Oh, wow. Look at you.
Yeah, totally. But that's the thing, is that it was around that time when this film came out. So, which is another reason why I don't think it was. I've read a few reasons why it wasn't as successful as they were hoping. But I searched for this film to find it in the database, and I was very hard to find at the time. I eventually did get it on DVD, which is somewhere, as I always say, in my brother's attic, and I hope to retrieve it one day. But I remember kind of fast forwarding just to the monster parts and not really caring too much about the rest of the movie. But I also think at the time I was really into indie film. I was into film in general, getting acclimated to things that were different, that weren't like blockbuster films, or things that weren't super mainstream, let's say. And I had started hearing about this actress Sarah Polley, and she seemed like such a badass. And yeah, the cast at the time, I wouldn't have known how amazing like the casting was.
It is. It's surprisingly good. Like that's what like when you turned this on to me and I looked at the cast, I was like Julie Christie, Helen Mirren, Sarah Polley, and Robert John Burke, which is somebody I like a lot, but he's a little bit lesser known but he's definitely a face everybody knows. So.
Right. And so, at that time, I'm sure a lot of people were like, oh, this is star-studded, and they would have gone to see it. But then I think they would have been a little disappointed when they watched the film in general. And so, there's a lot of things to explore in this film, but that's the story of why I suggested it. Because when I saw that this film, I was actually talking about it with my friend Lindsay the other day, and she's like, what movie? And because I brought it up for some reason, and I was like, I need to revisit No Such Thing. I hadn't seen it since I had it on DVD, and I remembered what I thought of it then, which was mostly pulling out the parts about the monster, which are definitely the highlights, if you would ask. I know probably for you too. I mean, he's like a pretty funny character within this kind of weird world, supernatural world. But I think the idea of this film is there. I don't think it was executed great. And yeah, now watching it all these years later, definitely underwhelming as far as, okay. What I think of it as an older Darren Varel reviewing it for, our audiences out there. And the great thing about this podcast is we don't have to love it. I like exploring things that I did like before, and then that I'm kind of like, wait, what the hell? Like for sure, last night I was like, damn, I should turn this off because like I need to get some sleep here at 1 a.m. and watch it in the morning. But then I knew for sure, like in the morning, I would just not have time to write up stuff. So yeah, it's that kind of movie, you guys. Like I would say it's worth a watch, just like literally for the monster parts for me, and to kind of see a young Sarah Polley kind of killing it. Like she does have a very cool way about her, and she's obviously gone on to be an amazing writer and a director in her own right, with last year's Oscar nomination for her film Women Talking. And
was she nominated for Best Director?
I think so. I'm sorry, but I don't really have that information offhand. I think so. I know it was definitely one of those films that was really exciting last year for a lot of people, and it was, I think, in Best Picture category.
Yeah, you're right. Holy shit. I did not pay attention to the Oscars last year, obviously. That's good. I need to catch up on that one. I mean, I like her movies, the documentary Stories We Tell, quite a bit.
Yeah, I've not seen that. But of course I've seen 2004's, remake of Dawn of the Dead, which, by the way, that's why I was talking about Sarah Polley.
Yeah.
Lindsay was asking me about, she's like, what did you think of that? And obviously with remakes, sometimes, you're not sure, except of course, if your name is Rob Zombie and you're making the Halloween movies, which is ass, of course. But when you remake a film like that, that's like from a storied franchise, you're kind of like, oh, I don't know. And that was the first time I ever remember seeing zombies running, 2004's Dawn of the Dead. And Sarah Polley is exceptional in that. That's another movie I'd like to revisit. She kind of stopped acting.
That was definitely, I remember being a Suncoast watch. I think a whole group of us went to the theater once or twice to seeing it. So
yeah,
that was a popular one.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, yeah, Sarah Polley is like obviously kick-ass. And I love that she's had like a great career for herself, but not necessarily in the acting category. She's been more of a writer director these days. It looks like from what I've read, she had stopped acting around 2010. So it's quite a while that she's, been in front of the screen. She's more been behind it.
Yeah. I was actually just looking at one of her last movies. I haven't seen it since 2009, but Splice. It's a alien movie, like a sci-fi movie with her and Adrian Brody play scientists, and they conceive this alien / monster, and then they start becoming involved with it. It was a crazy movie. I haven't seen it since 2009. I haven't really seen people talk about it too much, but that was one of her last acting movies, and I remember it being pretty interesting at the very least. So I
feel like she always picked those indie films to do, which was cool. Dawn of the Dead, I think, was a little bit more of a blockbuster, so to speak, at least bigger budget, more notoriety. But yeah, she was always kind of more of this indie film actress.
I mean, I always loved, it was like a 90s Pulp Fiction era ripoff, but Go from 1999. Mm-hmm. That was always a movie I liked a lot. Had always a lot of fun watching it. And she was a kid actor. I know she was in the The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, Terry Gilliam film.
Right. Yeah.
I know she was just a little kid in that. I remember that being really good.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, with this film, just to go back to it, it's supposed to be, in a way, I feel like a mix of some elements of Dracula, like you said, Beowulf. But there's also like somewhere in there, like a comment on society, but I just can't, that's the thing. I think it's like muddied there, What did you think of that?
Well, I feel like it felt like it was going for a fairy tale, like with the music, just the kind of overall direction and vibe of it, even though it wasn't always successful in that, but like it felt like he was kind of going for a fairy tale, like I said, kind of Beauty and the Beast, Beowulf vibe, and then mixing it. So Robert John Burke, he's the actor who plays the monster. As you mentioned, which I still have only seen scenes, RoboCop is one of my favorite movies of all time, but he ended up playing Murphy / RoboCop in RoboCop 3, which I actually just realized is directed by Fred Decker, who did Monster Squad. So I should watch it just for that directing connection alone.
Yeah.
So he plays the monster. He was also in just a few reasons why I've always liked him. He was in the 90s Stephen King movie Thinner.
I love that. Yeah, I love that film.
Yeah, I haven't seen it for years, but I remember it being a lot better than what people gave it credit for.
It's kind of like a little bit more higher production Tales from the Crypt type movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but seeing his like physical transformation, I was thinking about it, it's basically the same plot as Drag Me to Hell, where this shady guy gets cursed by this gypsy.
Yeah,
he's this overweight guy, and then he just goes through this drastic weight loss until he's like down to just skin and bones till the end of the movie, and seeing his physical transformation is always fun. He was on Rescue Me, the bulk of that, with Dennis Leary, and that was a role that I really liked him in, basically playing an alcoholic pastor. But he's good as the monster in this. Now he definitely has what I noticed first about the performance. It feels like Hellboy. It's basically kind of like the same kind of devil-like character. He's hard drinking, very crass, very just like always out to murder somebody. It had a lot of Hellboy vibes, and this was at least like 3 or 4 years before Guillermo's Hellboy. So it was only like after the comic book. So I kind of felt like that was pretty original of him to kind of give it that vibe.
It's kind of like how Deadpool is, right? It's like, foul-mouthed, kind of like a little bit more crass, So maybe this was the leader in all of it.
He was definitely successful in that. Like, kind of, it was an interesting character to watch. It just didn't always vibe with the rest of the tone of the movie. So it's got a lot of the Icelandic landscapes throughout the middle of the film when she goes to Iceland to actually discover the monster, and those look pretty great. I was thinking the whole time that this movie would be better if it had a black metal score just the whole time.
For sure. Maybe it should be rescored. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because the score actually took me out of the movie quite a bit.
I agree.
It had a very like Hallmark holiday movie kind of score where it's just like boop, 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 watching these characters like actually have scenes, but then the score makes it feel like this cheap kind of D movie even that you would see on Hallmark or something.
Yeah.
And I was just really surprised. It turns out that Hal Hartley, the director, he did the score himself. So he was trying to go for a John Carpenter directing and do the score vibe, but wasn't totally successful.
Yeah. For sure. I think the thing with the score is that it's very under everything. It's not necessarily in your face, but when it does come up, it's a little disjointed. And sometimes it's like, maybe this was, excuse me there. Maybe this is a film that when I first watched it was just so bizarre.
Yeah.
That I had never seen a movie like this before. And so it was so exciting in that way because, now there's films are made that are, crazy all the time. And it's nothing necessarily shocks you. But when I saw this, like all these elements we're talking about, even if we don't like them, it's kind of like adds to the weird flair that this movie has. It's just all very, none of the parts seem to really work together for whatever reason, which makes it also oddly entertaining in that respect?
I mean, I was halfway through. By this morning, I was like hoping it would be good, bad. That it would get so ridiculous that I was going to have a little bit more fun watching it, which I did. I mean, it was almost there, but it did take itself a little too serious. I mean, so what I think he was trying to go for was just basically a commentary on like voyeurism and the degradation of society, because that's what the monster was like basically railing against. Is like, I'm so sick of everybody. I mean, the Helen Mirren, they're like this journalism newspaper, and they're just trying to give sensationalized news stories about the death and despair of people. And so that's kind of like what the monster was kind of representing and talking against. And then him going to New York was kind of like a clash of the worlds, which I kind of thought was almost had like King Kong vibes. Where
Totally.
Like yeah. Okay. So I wasn't sure if it was just me, but like, yeah, him being taken out of his native land and then thrust into New York, and then it goes to shit from there. So I feel like that's what I kept on picking up on, but it definitely didn't make it clear or it actually went anywhere with it. So
that's totally. That's exactly how I feel. Okay. And I think that the interesting thing about this is that, like, again, it had a kind of these components that, if done well, I think they all could have gelled to make a really good movie. I mean, I love the fact of bringing back that like sensationalized like monster into the world that does where they don't belong, and which is obviously going to be, a mismatch. It's not going to work out for anybody involved when you bring, like, it's kind of like when the dinosaurs came to New York and Jurassic Park, same kind of vibe, which was genius. Let's bring King Kong back to life. Everyone's always trying to do that, but then there's also this sort of like Dracula vibe, right? Like there's this monster in this kind of castle, when there's Icelandic people are like afraid to go up there, and they even say like, we'll only take you so far, because they don't want to fuck with the monster. They have like this thing where it's like, we're cool with him, he's cool with us, but every once in a while we'll give him some sacrifices, and then like he's gonna leave us alone. So there's all these elements of like classic sort of monster creature features, horror movies. And again, mixing them all together somehow imploded, but it could have been great. And then adding the idea of, humanity just sucks. They talked earlier and showed like the scenes when she's going to the airport. She can't get there because there's a terrorist attack, like, in the subway, and all of these different things that are happening in the world. And of course, surrounded around a news station where she works, where they're constantly trying to drum up like the headlines. And so a lot of ways you could say, it does work in the present day, because it's all like, they're talking about whipping up stories mainly for clickbait, before the clickbait was a thing. And, there's that component of it too. So all of these things could have worked really well together, but they, for some reason, did not. And then we're left with what to take away. For me, it's just like this character of the monster. I'd love to see a movie strictly about like him, like kind of like a Hellboy, right? Like you're saying, somebody who's just like, he's got these great one-liners, like I laughed out loud last night that the only part of this movie where I was like, oh fuck yeah, I'm so glad I'm watching it. It's like, as soon as she meets the monster and he's like, the fuck are you looking at? I was like dying laughing. It's so funny.
No, that's full on Hellboy with it. So yeah. And again, like I said, the performance I think from Burke is actually really good. Every scene he's in, every line he delivers kind of works. Yeah, it's just kind of mixed in with a whole lot of other unclear messages of if the messages are even there. So
right. Well, all right. I'm not going to subject you to belaboring talking about this film, because I think we've really just covered it all. I mean, there's really nothing more to offer in my.
I just find it. I find it. So, like, I just want to go more into like how you discovered the film a little bit more. So, when you started talking about discovering it at Suncoast, my first thought was, so we used to get like screeners all the time from like either of movies or DVDs, like stuff that like would come from different companies to like play or put on the score, on the soundtrack, like in the store or whatnot. So I was almost thinking that maybe you got this from a screener.
No, I don't. I can't imagine. Like, we would always get the big movies, like Lord of the Rings, or we'd get like something. No, like big. It wasn't just that.
They would sometimes send that. I mean, those were our movies that we would open and show in the store for sure. But we would also get a lot of like lesser known stuff, like CDs and movies for like companies like promoting their films, basically.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah.
So I was almost thinking maybe that's
it wasn't that. No,
it wasn't that. Okay,
I honestly can't remember how like I got brought to this, but like maybe I had seen like a clip somewhere. Or, like again, there used to be like a lot of movie fanatics that would come in and talk to us about movies, and so like I said earlier, somebody could have told me about the film, and I was like, oh, I got to see it, and I looked it up, and I did find it in the database and order it because I definitely have the DVD. And probably watched it, was like, oh, this monster is awesome, or whatever.
Looking back, there were a lot of guys who would just come in on like Tuesday at like 11 a.m. be like, I got nothing else to do. I'll just go to Suncoast and talk movies with whoever's working there.
Totally. And as soon as it became like a corporate, like, place, they were like, stop spending so much time with the people talking. I was like, well, that's why I like this fucking job. Like, so I'm out of here,
Well, so I mean, Hal Hartley, the director, he's always had a lot of movies like premiere at cons and like independent film festivals. Trust from 1990 is one of his more popular ones. I mean, Ebert mentions like several of his movies as a director that showed a lot of promise, that he never quite like made a great movie or anything. Right. So I mean, this was apparently No Such Thing was definitely his like attempt at like more mainstream filmmaking. Like, so this was like his mainstream film, as opposed to like more esoteric indie stuff. So, I mean, it makes sense that like us working there would have at least come across the name of it at the time, certainly, even though it did very poorly at the box. I saw it like it only opened to like 3 theaters. And that was basically its entire theatrical run.
Like from what I read on the Wikipedia is that they were like pissed at Hal Hartley because he wouldn't recut it. They wanted like to fully recut the film, and he was like, "No, I'm not going to recut it." Sticking with his vision.
Kudos to him for that. Sticking with what the movie that he wanted to make.
That's what I was saying.
I'm not going to argue that at all. So.
Maybe we get, all these years later, a little bit more understanding of, a death metal score and a recut, and maybe we're talking about this in a different vein. But yeah, so far this film is probably one of the more underwhelming reviews that we've had because it's a little flat. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's the case. And cool. Again, watching it again all these years later, it doesn't hold up. And we talk all the time on this podcast about films that, what are they going to, how is they going to be viewed in the test of time? And here I am watching this film and I'm like, that doesn't really have too much to offer,
No, but you are right when you talk about revisiting movies that you saw in your youth, and not even necessarily when you're a kid, but like when you're a young adult or something, when you're, and just, there's a lot of different factors that go into like why you might like a piece of art, and then that 20 years later that changes. So yeah, and maybe that's what we take out of this review is that sometimes revisiting things in your past don't necessarily connect in the way that they do when you're older. And sometimes they get even better though. So that's experiences that's like true. That. So.
Like RoboCop for you, right? It's like with every watch, I'm sure
that's just been ever since I was 9 years old. That's just been an upward trajectory until now. So, and I imagine it keeps on going up. Just really, the black metal. If there was a black metal score over the scene when he was getting the shit beat out of him and the guy pissed on him, like that would just work so well.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. It's like, and by the way, that part when the guy's peeing on him, it's like, is that necessary? Really? Like, you already showed that they're shit out of him. You don't need to pee on him,
I mean, I think Tribulation would make that scene 10 times better. So
no, well, totally. Yeah. So, I mean, that's my pick for this week. And again, we're still friends. I think that, bringing something to the table and have a discussion about this again, I think what comes out of it is like, the thought of, have you revisited anybody out there? Have you revisited any films that you loved when you were younger and found out maybe they don't connect the way that I thought they did, or maybe I don't love the things that I loved about them anymore, or maybe I've just grown up a little bit and grown past these things, and now I'm on to more exciting topics, or different, like you said, taste change. And one thing that remains for me about this movie is how fucking badass a monster is cursing and, killing people. I mean, I'm always going to sign up for that.
Yeah. I mean, maybe just watch Hellboy 2 from Del Toro and have a little bit of a better time.
Why Hellboy 2, not Hellboy 1?
Hellboy 1's great. Hellboy 2 I just like better.
Oh,
yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Del Toro, he's never made a bad movie, so nothing wrong with that. So
yeah.
I mean, and we'll always check with Ebert.
I know you're good. I knew you were going to read his review. I knew at some point.
I mean, if it's available, whatever movie we talk about, if it's available, I'll always check that out.
Do you have the quote in front of you?
There was one line. Was it about Julie Christie got a facelift and?
Oh shit! I didn't read that far into it. I just saw the headliner where he basically says like, they don't even do bad good. Oh
right, yeah. Okay, yeah. No, I did. That was good. There was one line. I'll just look it up. Her plane crashes in the ocean. She is the sole survivor and therefore makes good news herself and is nursed back to life by Julie Christie in a role no more thankless than the others in this film. Since the filming, Christie had a facelift and Mirren won an Oscar nomination. Life moves on.
Wow. God, if we missed
Ebert
that guy.
Was such a fucking dick, but it was so fun to read it though. So
yeah,
you didn't like something.
Well, and that's the fun thing is like reading those reviews. Like, God, man, how cool is it for us to be able to look up Roger Ebert's reviews all these years later?
Yeah, the internet will destroy everything, but at least we can see what Ebert said 20 years ago. So,
and I'm just gonna point out to the audience here. Maybe you can talk. Maybe we switch gears here, and you can talk a little bit about what's been going on in our lives because I think we've covered no such thing. Not necessarily recommending this film to everybody out there, but it is fun for a watch if you have nothing else to watch and you want to hear about what Patrick and I are talking about. The Monster is my favorite pick of it.
Yeah, I'll support that statement. So for sure.
So over the holiday, this is now January, it's a new year, but over the holiday, I got a gift in the mail and there was no like classic Patrick gift giving. There was no note about who it was from. I had no clue it was coming and I just opened it up. But of course, when I saw what book it was, I knew immediately that it was from you. Oh, yeah. And it was the Siskel and Ebert Opposable. What a great name for a book about them, by the way. Opposable Thumbs. Have you read that book fully? I just started getting into it and I'm really loving it.
Well, I haven't even started it. I have my copy over here. I ordered it. I've just been finishing up a couple other books, so I haven't even started it. So I'm looking forward to it. So,
gotcha. Yeah, I mean, literally had no clue. It wasn't even on my radar. So, is this pretty brand new book about Siskel and Ebert's life and how they came to be, right?
Yeah, brand new. It's from Matt Singer. He's a writer, film critic that I've been following for many years. He's really great. He used to have a great podcast. Mostly just sticks with the writing now. And he announced like 2 years ago that he was writing a Siskel and Ebert book. So I've been following that trajectory ever since. And yeah, it just came out in November. So yeah, I'm excited to read it. I'm excited to hear what your thoughts are. Just felt like one that you had to have. So
yeah,
so,
and
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And it's of course
Happy Kwanzaa.
Yeah, 100% right down my alley, as you know. So I'm really looking forward to like digging in more. I've gotten through the first chapter. Yeah. Did you have a nice holiday break? I'm like right now ready to be in work mode again. I got really busy actually yesterday, like unpredictably. And that's kind of the best part about being in business for myself is that like I'm kind of just letting, there's days where like no paychecks come in at all and, nothing's happening. I'm just working away and thinking, will I have to get a job here soon? And then there's days that I'm just so busy. I'm like, there's no way I could ever have a real job again, and I just adhere to my life the way it is and the chaos. And so I did have like 2 weeks off pretty much. And I said, I'm not going to do anything. Hung out with my girlfriend, watched movies, had a great time.
Oh, yeah.
Drank too much and ate too much. And during that time, I found myself like, as per usual, like I was busy in a different way. I was busy like relaxing and I was ready to move back into like creating the art, which is behind me, a bunch of new stuff I've been creating. But what was your break like?
Oh man, completely disconnecting. Super chill. A lot of reading, unsurprisingly. A lot of movie watching, unsurprisingly. Visited a bunch of DVD stores. I was rearranging my place, so as you can see,
I noticed
my DVD collection, which has been over here since actually I moved in, which has been deep cleaning my box here in downtown Chicago, and so moving stuff around, and so kind of putting the physical media back onto center stage, physically and metaphorically. Like, I think 2024 is the year that people will realize that they don't want to stray too far from physical media, and streaming has become a unsustainable thing for many reasons, and I think so it's time that we kind of jump back into a little bit more of a balance between the two.
Well, speaking of, I just got an email from Amazon Prime, and it told me that all of the movies that are free on there that come with your subscription are now going to come with ads, unless you want to pay them to get them taken off. And again, we just watched, I'm sure you watched the movie last night with the ads, and it is totally jarring and not the way that you want to watch a film. So I don't mind the ads for a lot of reasons. Like, it helps out actors out here who are trying to get jobs, and selling products. It's the American way, right? But at the same time, like, sometimes when you do pay for a service and you're like, wait, I got to pay extra now for like the nut, they just, all of these streamers are terrible. They just keep on gouging you. And it's these subscription services. They know like people are going to forget about it. They're going to pay it no matter what. And that's just unfair. So yeah, I like that. Physical media coming back. I would love, again, to scour my brother's attic and grab all of the great movies that I had. I see you got the 6 Feet Under box set back there. I have that as well. Definitely.
Yeah, we discussed that. So we'll go into, I got my physical media picks that I picked up over the last couple of weeks that I was excited for, but also want to point out the highlight of the break was the fantastic TLB show here in Chicago. We haven't had a chance to talk about it, obviously, since, but like, man, you guys destroyed it there with LBC, and fantastic. Chicago, I can tell, was just so excited to have you guys back there. So you guys did great.
Well, thanks for saying that. That was a special show for me to be back there. I'd gone only back one time since I moved from Los Angeles, and it was to work with the T's, doing media for them, actually. But it wasn't really like for me, and it was a work trip. And this was actually, it was work trip if you think of it that way, but it was performing with my best friends and getting to see my best friends at the show. And, like, our community and local music and things like that is really pretty beautiful. It's something that I kind of glad that I don't do every weekend anymore, like I did when I was a kid, because that gets old for everybody. There was just really nothing else to do when we were kids, so we would just always have the band, and then you'd come see the show and drink too much, and that was great to do every weekend when you're 20. But now that we're older, it is like more of a special thing when we do that, and the camaraderie is better than it was. There's not so much everybody's trying to help each other, and everybody wants to come together to make a good show for the audience. And that's the way it always should be. And I think that's the thing that I took out of that show the most, is that, first of all, I had, that surgery that kind of put me out of commission for a while. So I was able to like perform the way I used to an extent, like the best I used to do, a lot crazier things. And now I kind of like have a little bit more focus, and I know what I can and can't do. So it was a different experience for me this time around, but it was good for me to get back to it. I think a lot of times when people go through something, it's good to take a little time away, but then kind of revisit it, and maybe in a different way. Maybe like this movie we're talking about today, revisit things that you love, but find a different way of experiencing it, of enjoying it. And this time through, the main thing that I wanted to do, which is why I'm glad, and unless you're blowing smoke, I wanted to really put on a show for the audience. I think of the audience first instead of thinking about myself the whole time, which I did a lot, when I was on stage back in the day. It was more like, here I am, the performer, and aren't I cool? Like, not that I'm self-centered that way, but, there's a certain amount of that in the performance where you're kind of thinking a lot about yourself. You're heady about it. And now I was kind of like, what am I going to be like now that I've had, some pretty serious surgery, and what's the show going to be like? And I just spent a lot of time before I came out focusing on the songs and playing them well. And we practiced twice. We were terrible the first day, decent the second day. And usually what happens is by the show, you're pretty good. But when I was by myself, I was able to really, really focus on the songs, think about how I would perform them to the audience. And then what surprised me about the show is I was moving the way that I used to without thinking. And that got me to like this realization that like this music and the art and the way that I perform is just in my soul and not about, looking cool or being cool. Like I wanted to be more careful than I was. I always said like, I'm glad my girlfriend didn't come to the show because she probably would have been like, what, holy shit, what are you doing? Protect yourself a little bit more. But like, I just couldn't help it that I performed the way that I did because of like what's inside me. And so I know this is a long way around commenting about your nice compliment, but I'm just trying to say like it did a lot for me and my artistic life and musically, because I haven't felt too connected to music in a while because of the fact of all I've said here. And so I loved it. And I think the response was really great. And it was great to see you. Great to see my friends. Maybe not doing this every weekend anymore, but whenever we do get to do it, I mean, it's very special. And I savor it. But then I'm on to the next thing, just like everything else. The Norman Lear had died over the break, and there was that line, and I've been saying it a lot because my girlfriend hit me to it. She's one of her favorite lines that he said. And he said, the magic is in between over and next. And that's kind of just living in the present moment, right? And so like I try now to do things like that, and I can reflect on them like I just did, but I also kind of leave them where they were. And enjoy the fact that it was fun, but what's next, And I used to put a lot more stock in it. Like I used to call it mowing the lawn the next day. Because one time back in the day when we were performing with my old band Backdrop, we played the Metro, and it was this kick-ass show, and it was so great, and everybody loved it, and we performed great, and it was this extreme high, the best you could get, like playing the Metro in Chicago, sold out show, awesome. The next day I wake up and I had to mow the lawn, And so I was sitting there mowing the lawn and thinking to myself, like super depressed, like, oh my God, like I can't do that again. Like until maybe months from now or whatever it is, but like, I don't let myself get there anymore. I got like something always happening. There's something always in the pipeline, which is the next thing that Norman Lear was talking about, to get me excited about, to not be living in some sort of state where I have to feel bad about mowing the lawn the next day.
I mean, yeah, it just sounds like you're letting the self go and being in the present in the most Buddhist sense. Playing a show at the Metro and mowing the lawn are just two things you're doing in the present moment. So
right, exactly.
Both meditative, by the way,
That's true. And again, I talk about doing the art as being like the closest thing I can feel to God. And so yeah, it could be that way for anything as long as you're present with it. It's even better if it's something you enjoy, of course. But yeah, meditative, cooking, anything like that can get you into that state, I think.
Yeah, well, it's good that you're conscious of the physical health. I mean, you definitely looked like your 20-year-old self. When you started trying to do the mosh and smashing the guitar over your brother's head, I was a little worried for a second. I was like, hey, watch the back, all right? But yeah, other than that, you were definitely keeping it professional and looking good. So, I mean, yeah, the crowd was going fucking insane. I mean, for a couple of those songs. I mean, obviously, one of your biggest bangers, Drinks on Me, the crowd was going insane for that. So,
awesome. Yeah.
Had a great time. So
I knew that was one of your favorites. So I wanted to make sure that one, especially like the lyrics are nonstop in that song. And it's really, really challenging to sing that song. So one of the things that I made sure is that I knew the lyrics 100%. I think I got them all right. And also asking Mike, who we had on bass,
Yeah.
to sing the whoa drinks on me, because sometimes if like those are ganged, I can back off and then I don't lose my voice as much. It's really sometimes with those punk songs a challenge to keep your voice fresh, you know.
Yeah, I mean, just one last point. It was totally random, but like speaking of your old shows with Backdrop, so I was testing out a new like sound bar that I have, and so I was playing Spotify on my TV, and it was just one of my random playlists, and a Scissor song came on. And something I like, it's not anything on my computer or anything, but on my TV, if I'm playing Spotify, it was showing all the old Scissors like posters that you guys made back in the day. Like it was a collection of like old concert flyers from like 2000. And it's like, I just never seen that on any of my like computer or anything. And so I took a snapshot of that. There was the one with Marty McFly with the sunglasses. It was just like, I hadn't seen those flyers in 20 years. And then it was like a whole collection of Scissors and Backdrop ones. So
yeah, you know, it's I think you can do it on like, if you're a Spotify artist, you can go and like submit like something for like the background. A long time ago, I made those and then I made like a poster for myself of like all of the old flyers, and then I just used that file and put it in the background. So that's what you're seeing is just
like I said, it's like I've never seen that on like my laptops or on my phone or anything like that. But for some reason it showed up on my TV when I was testing the soundbar. So it was awesome to see. That's
awesome.
So,
yeah. Well, thanks for attending the show, and anybody out there listening, if you went, thank you for coming. Man, I had such a fucking blast. Can't wait to do it again. I have a feeling we might do that out here in LA. But yeah. Well, we're on to next. You know, this is a great new year to be creative, and I'm trying not to put too many heavy, lofty goals or anything for myself. I'm just trying to be and just continue on what I've been doing because that's what's made me happy, you know, and I think I finally found that rhythm. So just creating every day, trying to stay active in the things that I love. And I think that'll make for a good year. Do you have any plans, or do you make goals for the new year for yourself?
Generally not. Yeah, I don't. It's romantic, but I don't think I've ever had a New Year's resolution that I kept. So I kind of feel I moved away from those years ago, and maybe take a more day to day. But no, I mean the week. Like we'll get back to movies now. Like I want to talk about all the good stuff I picked up this last couple of weeks. But just more books, more writing, more movies. Having fun with the podcast and work. I mean, work is going really well.
Good.
So yeah, I have zero complaints in life right now. So
good. Well, what's going on with this physical media you're picking up? Anything newsworthy?
So, I just been going to a couple random places around Chicago: Reckless, Record Breakers, Disc Replay in the suburbs. So we'll just go over a couple. I sent you a picture for Raising Cain, the Brian De Palma movie. That tagline that was on that one was an all-time best. It was like demented, destructive De Palma or something along. I'm paraphrasing it, but
yeah, really
Raising Cain with John Lithgow. Very excited for this one. So you have not seen this one?
I have not.
Yeah, it's one of an all-time best performance in a De Palma movie. I think. I mean, Lithgow was so fun.
Lithgow's great.
Playing a split personality. Basically almost like a Fight Club David Fincher movie, but like it's him the whole time. So
cool.
Yeah. I picked up a Remainder's Favorite Mandy.
Nice.
It's not the Steelbook, but
is it Blu-ray or is that DVD?
This one is DVD. Yeah, so that's the other thing. So I did pick up a couple Blu-rays. That is kind of a newer thing for me. It's like I've had a Blu-ray player for a while, but I've never really purchased too many physical Blu-rays themselves. I think that's one thing that I want physical media to get back to, is that like the special features are still like non-existent for like most movies. I mean, we're lucky to get like even like a couple things, let alone the standard, like back in the day when you get like a whole disc of features, like documentaries, special stuff, film commentaries, which is like my favorite part of like,
I mean, except for Criterion. I mean, Criterion's really good at it.
That's true. But like just the general movies that come out, like it's basically just the movie a digital code for the movie sometimes itself. So
right.
Yeah, so that's one thing I'm hoping the DVDs and the Blu-rays get back to. So, but yeah, Mandy, obviously a favorite on the show. So very excited.
Was it brand new when you got it, or are these used copies?
No, I mean, I'm all used right now. So yeah, I'm definitely scouring all the used CD.
I mean, who the hell would sell Mandy? You know.
I think a lot more people than you would think, right? Oh, you mean like what individual would get rid of Mandy? That's true.
What I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
But then again, why did we sell ours? You know, like it's like, I guess, decide you're going to stream it instead.
We got, I got the Steelbook for Dunkirk. Looking good. I mean, I do like the Steelbooks. The Steelbooks are fucking great because this is not, this is going to be just as good condition in 20 years as it is now. I don't know if you remember that DVD style where it was like the cardboard with the plastic thing that went over it on the side.
Yeah.
Crappiest setup for like a DVD because like that thing would just disintegrate. Anything any type of water damage, it would just be completely done. But something like this is
like Boogie Nights was part of that, right? Wasn't it? Like they were all cardboard basically. The
non-special edition of Boogie Nights, I remember.
Yeah, and the Warner 2 discs were the same way, like Casablanca, the 2 disc of that, and like I think The Adventures of Robin Hood, which I loved. Man, I could feel those right now. Like you're talking about the physical meal. Like I kind of dream about those, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing. It's like I genuinely, I mean, I've done streaming as my primary way of watching movies, just like everybody else for like the last 10 years, and I can say with like confidence that just watching a movie, actually putting the DVD in or the Blu-ray in and sitting down and watching it is substantially more enjoyable than flipping through streaming and then maybe finishing it and maybe not. There's just something way more enjoyable about that physical presence of the DVD being in the player itself.
I was in a movie store the other day, just looking through. It was like specifically just for VHSs and DVDs and stuff over in Silver Lake, and they had on a bunch of like VHSs playing on like those old TVs. So like literally like one of like, the old like glass front TVs playing VHS. And I forgot like, kind of how they looked and stuff. And then there was for sure a lot of nostalgia. I was like, God, I would love to have like a little like secret room in my house where I could go and like tuck away and put in a VHS of like Jurassic Park from '93, and just like enjoy it. But alas, I need to be a rich man first so I can get a house specifically for that.
I mean, I'll send you a little 13-inch VHS TV combo. So if you want, I can scrounge one up for you. So
yeah,
just a couple more. Cold in July. This is a lesser known modern with Michael C. Hall from 6 Feet Under and Dexter, Sam Shepard, who we talked about recently, and then Don Johnson. This is an awesome noir, modern noir, kind of in the vein of maybe like Blue Ruin or early Coen Brothers. Great movie. So I was happy to get this on there. And then finally, this is one that was probably going to be coming up on the podcast, is Brawl in Cell Block 99. This is the S. Craig Zahler, his second feature after Bone Tomahawk, but before Drive to Cross Concrete, with Vince Vaughn, one of his best performances ever. So seeing this, I had to have it. So
amazing. Yeah, I know you've talked about it, and I have not seen it yet. So I would love to discuss that on the podcast.
S. Craig Zahler. He's definitely one of my favorite working directors right now. So
I
so
love
it's good to have all these physical ones back on display now. So it's just good. Like I said, like streaming, I want to move forward with like a streaming and physical media kind of way to watch movies. I just think we've kind of moved away a little bit too much from the actual DVDs because, like stuff goes missing. It becomes unavailable. I think we've mentioned the amount of different streaming services that you need. It's certainly like if you have the bulk of them, it's more expensive than cable now, which was the entire point of having streaming. It was more affordable.
Right.
So I don't know. Like for right now, like I'm keeping like the major ones. Like I still keep HBO, and then I use your Criterion, and then Shudder. Those are like essential ones. And then I think we can kind of see what actually we need. Beyond that,
like I told you, no matter what happens, if I go broke, I will find a way to pay for Criterion. So, no worries there. We're going to have that service, which is a plethora of great stuff on there. And of course, your Shudder that I use. I mean, there's no, like, we really don't need anything else.
No, I mean, we could talk about movies just from those two for the rest of the time. So
yeah, for sure.
That, so. Well,
speaking of, I do want to talk about one movie that I did see before they add to paid, without ad service on Prime. If you are listening to this in time, you can watch a film on there called X. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I saw it at the Music Box.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I had not seen it, and I guess it's going to be a trilogy. My buddy Tom was telling me about it. He was like, you got to see X. Yep. And then he was telling me about, like, there's these other films in it. And it wasn't like a glowing recommendation or anything from him, but I think he was thinking that I would like it, which I did, of course. But it's going to segue, and we don't have to talk about the movie right now because maybe we'll cover it. I enjoyed it. It's an A24 who is, we've talked about it before. A24 is just killing it in the game right now. It's kind of, it reminds me of what Focus Features was doing back in the day when I was like, all the movies that I loved were Focus Features films. Like nowadays, it's like all the movies that I love are like A24. So this film X is an A24 film for 2022. I really enjoyed it. Right up our alley for both you and I. But there's a song at the very end of it that, like, I don't think I gave a lot of stock in until, like, how sometimes it's like there's these songs that are attached to something and it like just is like the perfect button or the perfect, like, all the songs that become popular after Quentin Tarantino puts them in their right. films. It's like you just attribute them almost to like the badassness of what you just watched. And so that film X ends with a song. Do you recall?
No, I'm just the end scenes with the old woman. I'm just picturing in my head. No, I don't remember the song that played.
Okay, so this is my song pick of the week.
Nice.
After hearing it from watching this film, Doctor, give me the news. I got a bad case of loving you. Robert Palmer.
Was it a cover or was it the original?
It's actually Palmer? The original Robert Palmer song. And okay. I was like,
yeah, now I remember it.
Loving it.
Nice.
I was like, because I even at the time it played, it's like, it's such a huge hit. I was kind of like, who is this? And then I look it up and it's like, oh my God. Again, what, like a song that I probably would have like dismissed back in the day that was on the radio in the 80s or whenever it came out that my mom like had on like, whatever station, classic rock or something. And now I'm like, I like walking down the street here in LA, listening to the fucking song, like bobbing my head, like a lot of pep in my step. So anyway, that's my song of the week. I love it. I've been listening to it ever since I watched X, which was a few days ago, actually. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, so that was the first, so you haven't seen Pearl then. Is that right? That's the sequel.
Have not. And I, went to go watch it. And of course, like that's all, you got to rent it or pay for it. So, I'm sure it'll come to streaming at some point.
Yeah. So
I looked at it. It's not on Shudder.
Yeah. I don't know what it's streaming on, but yeah, I mean, I enjoyed both of them. Scorsese came out batting for Pearl. Like when that came out, he was like saying like, this is a movie I absolutely love. So just FYI, the sequel to that. But yeah, I mean, Ty West, I mean, he's The Innkeepers and House of the Devil were both great horror movies, 2009, 2011 for those. And then yeah, it's going to be Maxine is the third one that's I think coming out this year. It's all three of them with Mia Goth and Ty West. So it's basically, I mean, not to give too much away, but there's a full connection with all the characters between the first two movies, at least. I don't know where the third one's going to go, but if you liked X, definitely check out Pearl. So
I saw the trailer for Pearl and I could see it's like a little bit of a prequel, it looks like, to X. So yeah, I'm totally pumped about it. It's really great. Like I told you the other day when we were talking about the Terrifier stuff, I was like, oh man, I'm so on board with the Terrifier, even though like I do not suggest that to anybody because it is like super horror. It is like super disturbing.
Not for normies. So
no, but
yeah, for all the horror fans.
Like
which
again,
I'm sure a lot of are listening. So.
Well, and I just like, it's one of those movies you can't necessarily say that you recommend. Otherwise, you look like you're like, a psycho yourself, because it's so brutal and extreme. Yeah,
I recommend those movies to everybody all the time. So no wonder I get weird looks after they watch it. So
right. But yeah, I love the Terrifier stuff. Like, there's a lot of good horror, stuff like that coming out, and that's hard to do because like everybody feels like they can make a horror film, right? But like not everybody can make a good horror film.
Amen to that. So, I mean, okay, then so I'll talk about my favorite movie going experience over the break was Godzilla Minus One. This movie came out of nowhere. It was the first Japanese Godzilla since 2016. I think it's the 33rd Japanese Godzilla. And so I think there's 38 overall, and that includes the American ones. And this might be the best Godzilla movie of all time. I'm shocked at how well they established the human story in Godzilla Minus One. It is, it's minus one. It's basically them saying it's a prequel. So it's set right at the very end of World War II, which was before the original Godzilla in 1954. And it follows the themes of like a post-war, war-torn society in Japan at the time. And that's what Godzilla represented. I mean, the original was more nuclear and the atomic bomb representation, but this one is more about a healing nation after a war and the will to live, because Japanese culture at the time was just so much about the collective. And so the individual was not valued at all. And so it grappling with that and combine that with some of the best action scenes Godzilla's ever done. It was absolutely one of my favorite movies of the year. So
I've heard nothing but glowing reviews from everybody who's seen it.
I mean, I remember I had my tickets ahead of time. I was going to see it the night, the last time we recorded. I was going to see it at the AMC on their Dolby Cinema that night. I was not expecting how much to love it. I went to see it 2 more times in the theater because I knew it's a movie you got to see in the theater as many times as possible. The score is incredible. The director, the style is not ripping off anything, but there's a lot of Christopher Nolan influence in the action scenes with the score and how it's just incorporated with the editing. It is just so well done, and it was just out of nowhere. And it's great that it's been doing so well in America because people are realizing like how crappy our big budget movies are. They're blockbusters. I mean, the Marvelization of everything. It's like the bar has been so low for like action movies, big budget movies. And so when people see something like Godzilla Minus One, when it's actually impeccable at every level, they're realizing, we're kind of getting cheated over here with some of our blockbusters. We need to start watching, going overseas for some of them.
Amazing. Yeah, I definitely want to check that out. I have been watching on Criterion. They have like all of them, the originals.
Yeah. So that's the thing with Godzilla. It's like I grew up watching Godzilla. I've seen them all. And the majority of them are like stupid and kind of made for kids and like just like comical in a way. And the original is obviously its own thing and very much more serious and like much more interesting. And then this one captures the spirit of the original better than any other Godzilla movie ever. So it's like I really think the first one and this newest one are the 2 best Godzilla movies, like with by a mile.
Now, have you dove into Monarch at all yet, or no?
I have not. That's another streaming service I'm going to have to get. If it comes out on DVD, I might pick it up. But yeah, that's the only thing I haven't picked up on because I like the American movies. Actually, they're fun. And the preview for the new Godzilla vs. Kong came out, the American version. And I like those. So I do need to still watch Monarch. It is kind of crazy that a Godzilla show with Kurt Russell is still something I haven't watched. But
yeah, totally. I mean, for sure. I just feel like
it's entirely because of the streaming. I just need to get a trial for Apple or something. If I had it available today, I would be binging it absolutely. But I just need to actually commit to getting the streaming service. So
well, very cool. Godzilla. That's like the brand that just doesn't stop giving. And here we are in 2024 talking about it.
Yeah, 7 years later. Love it. So like just a quick recap, I was thinking about it. So it absolutely is one of my top 3. I think The Holdovers and Killers of the Flower Moon. I think those are honestly my 3 favorite movies of 2023, which actually turned out to be a surprisingly good year in film. Like, I mean, it was much better than the last couple of years, I think. There's plenty of more stuff that on average that I've been enjoying. So
good. Yeah.
good to see.
I saw more movies than I think I had in 2022, which is great, you know, and, you know, for better or for worse, you know, when I liked it, and I know you did too, but there was a new Indiana Jones film, you know, this last year, and there was Renfield, you know, that I saw in the theater. Some fun stuff, you know, that not necessarily like Killers of the Flower Moon, like, you know, important films like that coming from directors that you know, must see directors, let's say, that are storied over time and are going to be legends, but still, you know.
Did you catch up with Flowers? I don't think I've heard your reaction to it. Oh, you haven't? Okay, that's why I haven't heard you say.
You know, the bummer is that it was so long and it came out during a time that I was just way too busy, so I couldn't find. I mean, the time.
That's why I only saw it once. I'm looking forward to watching it at home so I could break it up. But yeah, like it is pushing 4 hours, so like it's not surprising that. I mean, people will go see any movie that's good, but you know. It is another hurdle to ask somebody to sit for 4 hours nonstop. And that's another reason why I legit think intermission, they should bring intermission back.
Well, I was just about to say Tarantino did that when he put out Hateful Eight, you know.
Yeah. And that was like half the length of Killers. So
and he like did it in a great way where like when he came back, it was like kind of on like the edge of your seat about like who poisoned the fucking coffee, you know, and then it comes back in with that voiceover by Tarantino. That's like, Damergue's got a secret, you know? Yeah.
I could see, there's obviously the money incentive. Theaters don't want to do it because it's just cutting into fewer showtimes. So that's why they wouldn't want to do it. But I could see maybe if like one theater chain, like an AMC, if they just kind of implement it, I think a lot of other ones would maybe follow suit. So,
well, you got to get into The Curse if you haven't seen it yet. Benny Safdie,
oh, right.
and Nathan Fielder. That is so exceptional. And then also the new Fargo. Just get your ass going on the Fargo stuff, man. Especially that first season with Billy Bob. You got to.
I know, I do too. I've been wanting to. So the other thing I've been watching is the George Lucas commentaries on all the original Star Wars films, the first 6. And I actually didn't even realize that he did a commentary for all 6 of the first movies until recently. So I've been enjoying those. It's been fantastic to hear him again because Star Wars, since Disney bought it, is just kind of, I don't know, not that great, except for Andor, which is still.
And we tried Rogue One. Come on.
Well, so here's the thing. It's Tony Gilroy. Tony Gilroy did the script for Rogue One, and then he was the creator and showrunner for Andor. And Andor is everything that's great about Rogue One and none of the bullshit. And I rewatched Rogue One between the cameos of like Darth Vader and Grand Moff Tarkin and Leia. Completely takes me out of it. Like I rewatched it and I was like, yeah, the good stuff is still there, but like all that cameo bullshit really made me not enjoy it as much. So
people want to see that shit. I want to see that shit. You know, when you see Vader and that door lock, the movies are fucking killing everybody. It's like, god damn, man. You know,
I'm not arguing against it. All I'm saying is Andor is 100% focused on the story. There's no reference to any of the major characters. You don't see any of them. It's entirely self-contained within the world of Star Wars. And that's what I think makes it like one of the best Star Wars products since the original. So,
I see your point, and I like that. You know, you got it in your head. If you're a fan of Star Wars, you know what Andor is.
All I'm saying is, if you like and love Rogue One, Andor is 100% up your alley. It's like I said, it's Tony Gilroy, so everything that you like about Rogue One is like just emphasized in Andor. So I'm looking forward to rewatching that one for sure. I did see a good meme about Fargo, and it was saying. Season 6 should be Jerry Lundegaard getting released from prison 30 years later.
No shit.
It was just a joke, but I was like, that would definitely get me to watch it. So, although I did see another story. We always go back to Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage says he only has a few more movies in him, and then he's moving to TV. So that's what's going to get me back to TV for sure. So.
I don't know what to say about that.
He's done everything he can for movies. He's mastered the art, and now he's just going to start exploring
and more.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I would just say Nicolas Cage. I'm signing up for anything he does, of course.
Right.
So fine, no problem. And then I will also say, I got to get into all those Star Wars films. I mean, I really, after Rogue One, I didn't really see anything. I mean, definitely.
You're not missing anything.
Yeah. I mean, I think I watched the Han Solo story and I was like, fuck this. And that was it
terrible
for me.
No, I agree with you. Rogue One's the best movie post Disney. I agree with you there for sure. I mean, most of the other shit, all the other movies are fine. They're just completely rehashes. And then aside from Andor, all the shows are pretty much garbage. I haven't watched all of them, but like even the best ones like Mandalorian are like okay. So that's all I'm saying is like it's been nice to go back to the George Lucas commentaries and coming from the man who created it and like how much he loved the world he created. It's like a breath of fresh air after all the bullshit that's been coming out since Disney owned it. So
yeah, wow.
All I'm saying is you're not missing too much with the new movies. So as long as you saw Rogue One, you're getting the best of it. So
corporate America strikes again.
Is what it is. Is what it is. To quote the infamous Irishman.
I heard you paint houses.
Oh, what a great movie.
Well, cool. I'm glad you saw some good films out there in 2023. I know we're going to have a lot of good ones in 2024. It was a good year for movies. A good year for music. We talked about a lot of different songs that came out. Do you have a pick of the week for your start of January 2024?
Sure. I got a couple. I mean, I'm in a kind of a synthy post-punk pop rock kind of vibe. So the trailer for Grand Theft Auto 6 released. So I'm not that big of a gamer. I've played a handful of games in the last like 10 years. But Grand Theft Auto 5 was one of them. And it's shocking. Like it's amazing. Like it's easy to not, if you're not playing video games, like the Grand Theft Auto series is like honestly one of the biggest IPs in the world, like in terms of like the amount of money that it generates. Video games are just really like it dwarfs like what music and movies make. It's like the amount of money that goes into video games and how much money it generates. So it's easy. I know you don't really play video games, and if you're not playing video games, it's easy to go fly under the radar. But like these things are huge. It's a short way of saying how big it is. So the trailer released, it's got 170 million views on YouTube, which is like within the first like 2 weeks. Like, so that's just showing you like how much interest in it. And the song that played is from Tom Petty from Full Moon Fever, Love is a Long Road from 1989. So that's what I'm going to go with. It's fantastic. It's like, honestly, with that, like Love is a Long Road is probably the most listened to song in the last couple of weeks, aside from Hey There, Delilah, which is always number one. And so it's great because this game is going back to the 80s, the way Grand Theft Auto Vice City did with the Ray Liotta, his character from the early 2000s. And that obviously had an amazing soundtrack. All the Grand Theft Auto games have amazing soundtracks. So I'm really excited for the amount of good 80s deep cuts that are going to come from this Grand Theft Auto 6 soundtrack. Like I said, like having them doing Love is a Long Road from Tom Petty just on the trailer is already just like setting the tone of like what it's going to sound like and the songs that they're going to choose for it. And I think it's going to expose like a lot of awesome deep cut music to people who have never heard it. So
yeah, that's great. I mean, I definitely don't know that tune, so I'm looking forward to hearing it on our jukebox playlist.
Yeah, I mean, I like Tom Petty. He's never been one of my favorites. You know, it's like I've always been a Bob Dylan much more. But I mean, this is the album from '89. This has got Free Fallin' and I Won't Back Down. So it's definitely off of his one of his more popular albums. But this is a more deeper cut from that album. So,
well, I know
that's the one I'm going with. So between this and Robert Palmer, we got a very pop '80s vibe, which I totally agree with you. I mean, that music on its own can be one thing, but then when it's in a piece of art, like a movie or whatnot, it like takes on a whole new meaning and vibe, and you can have a whole new appreciation for it. That's what I love about in music and movies and the way they combine.
1000%. And there's certain directors that do it so well, right? Like Scorsese. It's even like funny because now you can see like movies that people do where you're like, oh yeah, they're obviously ripping off Scorsese with like choosing this 1950s like doo-wop song over like a fight scene. You're like, oh, come on, I've seen Scorsese do this. Why are you guys trying to rip off the master?
Yeah. I mean, anytime I'm in a pool hall ready for a fight, I hear Mr. Postman, and it just feels so good. So.
Totally. Well, very cool. This has been a great first episode. I just want to thank everybody out there. If you've made it this far, it's always really cool to know that there's people listening to our podcast that enjoy movies the way that we do. I feel blessed to be doing it for a fourth year. And I said this the other day on a podcast that I did, and they're like, what's up with Remainders? And I was like, I don't know. Like, that's the one thing that I don't really give a shit about. Like, meaning, like, I just want to have these conversations about movies with you, and I hope people listen. But it's not really the point. Like, I think if it was, something that we were trying to be a little bit more serious about, we might hire a social media manager or whatever. Like, it's too much. There's too much work that goes into all of that kind of stuff, and I'd rather just focus for once in my life on something that is fun for me instead of having to try to like always like drum up some social media posts or what from time to time I'll put those together. But for the most part, it's more about the conversations. And if you're along for the ride, just know that means a ton to us because of the fact that, you get it the way that we do. And
hell yeah.
That's really, really the point of this podcast, is to have these conversations. And that being said, please do chime in and let us know what you think of these picks. Tell us we're wrong. Tell us we're right. Tell us something we don't even know. There's been so many good conversations happening on our YouTube page, especially, where I'm hearing, versions of the film that I didn't even think about. And so that's really beneficial for us to continue the story, outside of the conversations we're having here. And who knows, maybe we'll have a world where we do invite in some guests, and hear like their takes on movies to get a different opinion. But for now, I'm just happy talking with you, Pat. Thanks for making the time. I know time is important, especially as we get older here. And I'm enjoying it, man. Happy 2024.
Happy 2024, but looking forward to the rest of it.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, that being said, we're signing off, and we'll see you next time here on Remainders.
See ya.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.